Present simple is the grammar tense that we use to talk about our lives and permanent situations in our lives. It is used to talk about habits, routine, facts, and general truths. General truths means things that are real or true. Let's start with some positive statements. I ride my bike 2 or 3 times a week. My dad lives in Australia. My son plays soccer. I am an English teacher. I'm Australian, but I live in Italy. I love Italian food. Italian is a very complex language. Now some negative statements. I don't work on Sunday. We don't live in Australia. I don't like horror films. I don't like cold weather. You don't play tennis with 3 people. Here are some questions. Do you work on the weekend? Does he work at the cinema? Does she play football? Does she know how to swim? Do they like Chinese food? How long does it take you to get to work? So as you can see from these examples, with present simple, we are talking about routines, habits, and the things that we do in our lives. When expressing ourselves in present simple, we often need to use time expressions. Time expressions help us communicate when or how often we do the activity. We often use adverbs of frequency to talk about how often we do something. For example, always, usually, often, sometimes, occasionally, rarely, hardly ever, and never. I always brush my teeth before going to bed. I usually read a book before falling asleep. I often eat out on the weekend. Eat out is a phrasal verb and it means to eat in a restaurant. I sometimes take my children to the cinema. I rarely eat red meat. I hardly ever go out dancing, unfortunately. I never drink spirits. Spirits is the word that you can use to describe hard alcohol like vodka or scotch or whiskey. Here are some other time expressions you may use when expressing yourself in present simple. Every day, every Monday, every Friday, every weekend, each Tuesday, each month, each year, once or twice. Once is 1 time, twice 2 times. Once a week, once a month, once a year, twice a day, twice a week, twice a month, 3 times. 3 times a day, 3 times a week, 3 times a month, etc. Now let's look at how to form the present simple in a little bit more detail. Positive sentences in present simple are formed with the subject. The subject is I, you, he, she, it, we, you, or they, plus the verb, work, run, live, cook, eat, etc. And then the rest of the sentence. Now, it's important to remember just one thing. The only time the verb changes is for the third person. Third person is he, she, it. So for regular verbs, we simply add S. Sing becomes sings. Require becomes requires. Cook, cooks. Live, lives. But with some verbs, you need to add ES. For example, verbs that end in CH. Watch, watches. Verbs that end in S, miss, misses. Verbs that end in SH, rush, rushes. Verbs that end in X, mix, mixes. And verbs that end in Z, buzz, buzzes. Then we have verbs that end in Y. In this case, we need to add IES. For example, try becomes tries. These are the exceptions, but there are also irregular verbs to consider. For example, do becomes does, have becomes has. Here's 10 examples of present simple positive statements in order for this to really stick. Stick can be used to describe stay or remain. Okay, so I'm going to give you 10 examples to help it stick in your brain. My son loves playing football. My children all go to school. It usually rains every day in November here in Italy. I either drive or ride my bike to school. My youngest son sleeps in the afternoon. I don't teach maths, I teach English. In American English, they say math, and in British English, we say maths. We go to the beach on holiday every year in summer. Cats have 9 lives, apparently. And lastly, during the week, I get up at 6:45. Remember, you only use AM or PM if it is not clear the time of the day of the activity. Let's move on to present simple negative sentences.